Good good evening. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Esther. How are you?
I'm good, and you guys?
Oh, great.
Perfect.
Great. Looking we've got a few people connecting in. Okay, welcome, welcome. Tonight we're going to be talking about listings. Man, one of my very favorite topics in the whole world is listings. And we've got some test questions to go over and some concepts to talk about. But in regards to listings, and why I feel so strongly about them, you ought to check out on what I call the classic series of the Rick Roller Classic series, and it's you can find it at well, actually two places. You can go to Rick Roller Real Estate and YouTube, Rick Roller Real Estate, and you can find some videos there and some audios, and or you could go to rickroller.com and find them there as well. But there are two things I would direct you to help you get going in your career. And one of them is there's a video, particularly at rickroller.com, that talks about things you can do now while you're in real estate school to get ready to hit the bricks running once you get involved with real estate. So, when you get your license, I want you out on the street day one making deals. Okay. And to do that, you need to do some pre-license work, and that video talks to you about it, and it tells you what you can do and what you cannot do in pushing the envelope, because in Utah, we have rules and regulations and laws, and one of them is you cannot solicit real estate business without a real estate license. However, you can tell people you're in real estate school. Just don't say things like, and when I get my license, I want your business, because you're soliciting without a license. But you could talk to people about what you learned about listings, or what you learned about vesting in title, or myriads of, hundreds of different things you can talk about. And just to kind of get them to thinking, when they see you, they think real estate. When they think real estate, they see you. So that's one thing. But that's the one that talks about what you can do while you're in school. And then there's another one. It's an audio, um, that's titled "Why List," or just listings. And you really ought to take a look at those, because too many agents right now are trying to get started focused entirely on buyers, and it's just really tough right now. I'm not saying don't work with buyers. Buyers are great, but you've got to work with the right kinds of buyers. And what I mean by that is you need to work with buyers that is what I call an A buyer, A class buyer. An A class buyer is someone that has a need, and they have a time pressure, and that is they need to buy right now, or they need to sell right now. And a B class buyer is someone that has um, an interest in selling or buying, and they have a known later date. So they're a B buyer. An A buyer is someone who wants to buy or sell right now. A B or buyer or seller is someone that has a known later date, but it's off a few months. I want to buy, after Christmas, or I want to buy just before Christmas, or whatever. Well, those are still good buyers. A's and B's are good buyers. A C buyer is someone that has an interest but no date motivation. And that's your dentist that said, hey, if you ever find any good deals, let me know. I'm interested in buying some real estate, but he has no date motivation. If you can't talk to him and say, okay, how many do you want to buy in the next 3 months? Or, have a conversation that puts some date parameters on things, then they're a good quality C. And then there's somebody else who has no interest whatsoever, which is most of the people. Most of the people in your life and in the world today do not want to talk to a real estate agent. Only about 17-20% of them do. So quit wasting your time with the 80% who have no interest and no date motivation. Or even if they have an interest and no date motivation, doesn't mean burn them off. Eventually they'll get warmed up, but just keep in touch with them. But a lot of agents get in our business and they get themselves out of our business because they're putting the wrong people in their car. And the wrong people are C buyers. That dentist who said, yeah, I'm interested in buying, but I just, if you get the right deal, let me know. Well, you don't put them in your car. You send them emails, and you talk to them on the phone. And then when they get hot, you put them in your car. But you only want A's, maybe some B's, but mostly A's in your car. Now, another thing you do to get out of the business quickly is to take a good, phenomenal quality A buyer or seller and treat them like a B. In other words, they're not in your car. So if you have someone that wants to sell, you get over and get the house listed. If you have someone that wants to buy and they want to buy right now, they should be in your car. They're the ones you should be working with right now, and don't let them out of your car until they buy something. But all that stuff is kind of discussed in these two videos and something you should be aware of. Tonight, we're going to focus in on the test as it equates to listings. Okay. And so let's look at our first question, Dan. And oh yes, we have Dan Naylor with us tonight, president of our school, the school with the mostest, and he's the host with the mostest tonight, and our technical producer. So let's look at question number 1. It would be prudent of a broker seeking a listing agreement on a parcel to determine what? Well, it would be prudent to find out if they really have the authority to sign a listing. Now, and that's answer A, and that's our correct answer. The listing contract has been approved by an agency. What agency? I mean, we don't have to have listing contracts approved by any agency. The broker's other principals agree to the transaction. The principals are adequately represented by legal counsel. Those are interesting things, but it's not the most prudent thing when you're trying to get a listing. When you're trying to get a listing, you need to get the correct owners to sign. So how do you know they're correct owners? You check the county records. And if you don't know how to do that, you go to a title company, have them take you to lunch and teach you how to do that. But it's not that hard to do. We can even do it through some of the functions in the MLS right now. But you need to find out that the right people are signing. Now, if there's one owner, you only need one signature. 2 owners, you need both signatures. 3 owners, you need all 3 signatures. 4 owners, you need all 4 signatures. Are you getting my drift here? If there's 7 owners, how many signatures do you need? 7 signatures. Okay, I just finally closed that restaurant up in Ogden for 1.4 million. Finally got it closed. It was 9 signatures we needed on that puppy. Okay, and they're all over the country. So, but we got it all done. So that was nice. Okay, let's look at number 2. An agent obtains a listing which ensures compensations for procuring a customer, provided the agent is the procuring cause. So you have a listing, and this listing says, we will pay you if you're the procuring cause. Okay. What kind of contract has he entered into? Is it the exclusive right to sell agreement? No. This is the one you want to use like 98% of the time. An exclusive right to sell agreement says no matter who brings the buyer, you still get paid. Okay, and this is the one we like to use. This is the one that makes the most sense. Exclusive agency agreement is a little less than exclusive right to sell. Exclusive agency allows the seller to sell the house themselves without your help and assistance and cut you out of the deal. Sometimes a lot of agents use exclusive agency agreements if they're working for sell by owners. They go to them and say, well, look, you can continue to do whatever you want to do, but if you go ahead and put it with me, I can get it on the MLS. We don't want a lot of confusion, so we only want my sign on the property when other people come to look at it. And what we're talking about, and of course, net listings are illegal. A net listing says, Mr. Seller, you'll net this and everything over that I get to keep. They're illegal. They're illegal in most all states. And the reason for that is because it puts you at odds with your fiduciary. So that leaves us with C. C is the correct answer here. A listing that allows you to bring a buyer to a property and make a commission if you are the procuring cause is an open listing. It needs to be written like any other listing. All listing contracts need to be written, which is another wake-up item for the exam. They have to be written. And usually we use A here, but if it's this type of listing where the customer will, I mean, the owners will only pay you if you are the procuring cause. That's an open listing. We use them a lot in commercial, actually, and sometimes in land listings. And, let's look at number 3, please. Which of the following are the listing agent's duties? Find a buyer, determine the value, discover all observable property defects, provide legal transaction guidance. Well, if you're looking at this one, listing agents, could be A, could be D. Discovering observable property defects, that's more of an inspector. Determining the value, well, that's an appraiser. Your duty really is A, to find the buyer. Now, do we provide legal transaction guidance? Well, I don't like the concept of providing legal guidance. You're not an attorney. That's mainly what an attorney does. And that's why you should have some attorneys. Maybe you can get involved with your transactions if you want to. So it's interesting. A lot of title companies have attorneys that work there. And some title companies are actually owned by attorneys. So sometimes you can kind of piggyback on that, but what we're hired to do really is to help get it out there on the market and find a buyer. Number 4, please, procuring cause. Procuring cause, A, is traceable by an interrupted series of casual events. Okay. B, is always the agent when the buyer is represented by that agent. Not really. C, the seller has authorized the agent's actions, and the lawn sign is in a typical the lawn sign in a typical transaction. Okay. Well, D's not the right answer, guys, but sign calls actually are your very best leads. I love a sign call. Man, if I get a sign call, I am pumped. I drop everything on a sign call. Of course, you got to ask them, are they working with an agent? Because if they are, well, they should have that agent call you and get in that property. But if they're not, I'll run right out there. Why? Well, number 1, they're already in the neighborhood and they've driven around and they like it, or they wouldn't be calling on the house. Number 2, they like the house. They're in front of it. Maybe they've driven by, maybe they've driven around the side. There's an alley they drove around behind, they've seen the house from the exterior and they're interested in it. So sign calls actually are excellent calls, as long as, people aren't looking at homes they can't afford. And you can, talk to them about that. So I really am big on sign calls. And one of the things that I've developed lately that I'm having great success with is I'm putting QR codes on my signs. Now, you've driven around town enough and looked at homes that are for sale to know that the brochure boxes on those homes are always empty. They're empty all the time. It's kind of crazy. If you want to use brochure boxes, you need to have someone that's living in the house that's going to be responsible to keep the brochures in that box. And it could be a teenager, it could be one of the owners, but you need to give them a stack, and you need to tell them, okay, I want there to be 12 flyers in the box at all times. So when you come home from school or when you come home from work, I want you to go count the flyers. If there's 8, go ahead and put 4 more in, but keep it at 12, and so whatever that is. Now that's a cool thing, because they'll go out there and count, well, hey man, there's only 6 flyers in here. Wow, 6 flyers have been given out, and then they kind of keep it full. But to avoid that problem entirely, I go with the QR codes. And then what the QR code does is that because of COVID, people know that you can activate QR codes with your smartphone, because that's how you look at the menus in restaurants now. And so they'll do that. They'll come up, they'll click on that, and takes them straight to a video. And the video is me looking out a window to the street, and it's a side shot with the camera. So the camera has me in the side, I'm looking out, and I say, oh, hey, you're really out there, like I'm looking because they just called my phone, and so, but they got a video. And then I turn and face the camera and say, look, folks, I'm just kidding. I'm not really in the home, but wow, you've really got to see this one, because this home is an incredible house, and incredible houses in this market don't stay around very long. In fact, this home has 4 bedrooms, and then it has still shots that we've cut into the video, and a great kitchen and a dining room and this and that and whatever. And I'm telling them how exciting the house is. And then I say, call me right now, because good homes don't last like this very long. And I'll run right out there and I'll show you this home. And that's what I've been using. It's been working very well. And I wrote up a deal a couple of days ago where a neighbor wants to buy the house. And they're just one agent in that deal. That's me. If you can double side things, your checks will go twice as far. So the answer to this one on procuring causes A is traceable by an uninterrupted series of events. And they say casual events. Well, they're not going to necessarily be formal forays and tuxedos, but just events, that led to the sale. But it's uninterrupted. In other words, you couldn't show them a house, drop them, never talk to them again, and then 6 months later find out that they bought it from someone else, and then challenge that and say, well, I showed it to you first. You should have stuck with me. So the fact that you abandoned them or didn't follow through with them is prima facie enough there that you're not going to earn that commission. But if there's a situation where you're following up, you're doing your job, and all of a sudden you call them to write up the contract, and they cool off, and then you find out they wrote it up with their niece or something later, that's a different type of situation. Talk to your broker about that. Okay, let's look at number 5. A client suddenly decides to revoke an exclusive right to sell listing midway through the listing term. The reason stated, the client didn't like the agent. In this case, I don't love you anymore. I'm canceling the listing. Okay. In this case, A, the client is criminally liable. Now, these are contractual issues, but unless you used a sidearm or something to force them into signing that contract or threatened them or something, they're not criminally liable for discrimination based on cause for cancellation. They don't like you. Too convoluted. Sometimes with an answer rattles on like that, it's not the right answer. The agent may be liable. B, the agent may be liable for commission and marketing expenses. That's the correct answer, by the way. C, the agent can sue the client for specific performance, even though no customer has been located. The person that agents don't sue for specific performance. It's either the buyer or the seller that sues for specific performance. That's a situation where you're suing and making the person on the other side of the transaction close the transaction. We don't see it much in residential real estate. Judges don't like it. They don't like the idea of forcing someone out of their home if they changed their mind and didn't want to sell. They say, well, there's other remedies, like, take the forfeiture of the earnest money, come to some other agreement that would be fine. But making them sell a house to you, not so sure. But we see them in commercial all the time, especially if you're doing assemblages where you have these, these 1 or maybe 3 parcels, and you're putting them together to make one bigger parcel. Well, if you have the 2 on the end, everyone's agreed and you got contracts for all 3, these 2 close, but the one in the middle doesn't want, change their mind and they want more money or something. That's where you see specific performance suits. You see them there all the time. Agent can sue the client for specific performance. No, we don't have one. And the agent has no recourse but to accept the revocation. They can cancel the contract, but they could owe you marketing expenses. If you could delineate those, well, yeah, you can cancel listing, but I've already spent $300, $400 or $500 or more, depending if you do fancy brochures, or if you do a lot of videos like I do, it can get expensive. Okay. Let's go to 6. Number 6, a definition of a fixture is a matter of law. Why does the agent have to include in the listing agreement a list of fixtures included in the price? Well, you've been to 120 exciting and motivating and sometimes excruciating hours, and any more hours in practice testing and getting ready for this exam, you know that a fixture was once a piece of personal property that by method of attachment or by agreement of the parties or by the way it complements the house or whatever, that personal property becomes a fixture. Fixtures are always, always, always real property. But the definition of a fixture is something that was personal and has become part of the real estate. Fruit trees that you bought and planted on the property, replacing a toilet. You know, when you buy a home, you expect to get the plumbing fixtures. But when you bought it at Home Depot and you start hauling it to the house, it's a piece of personal property. Once you wrench it down and into place, it becomes a fixture and it goes with the property. So why are we so careful to list in our listing contracts and what's included and what's not included? And it's because buyers and sellers don't understand fixtures. They haven't been to real estate school. They haven't been to your 120 hours like you have. It's not that some fixtures may not be installed per code. Forget that one. Okay. It's to make an agreement clear to all parties. B, that's the right answer here. D, only a judge can determine a fixture. A judge is who you're trying to avoid. No, you determine fixtures by method of attachment and several other methods. When you study fixtures, you'll find out, but it's not just a judge. Fair housing laws require a list of fixtures. Now, fair housing doesn't require a list of fixtures.
Hello?
Yes, question.
Mohammed. How are you?
Fine. Welcome. Okay, let's do number 7, please. Okay. The purpose of including a clause on dual agency in the listing agreement is to obtain prior consent, to disclose current conflicts of interest, to bind the seller to dual agency, limit all dual agency to the listing broker's designated agents. Okay. Well, okay. The term dual agency means you're an agent working for both the buyer and the seller. You have a fiduciary to both. You don't have a complete fiduciary to either, but you do have a fiduciary to both. But we don't like the term dual agency. It sounds like you're a double agent working both sides against the middle, you know, like the Cold War or something. You don't want that. So we call it limited agency in our state. And a designated agency is a situation where it's an in-house sale. So D, limit all dual agency to the listing broker's designated agent. Designated agency is where the broker becomes limited. So at the heart of all in-house sales is a broker that is the limited agent for both buyer and seller, treating both fairly and honestly, and then designated one agent in the broker's office to be representing the buyer and designated the other one to be representing the seller. And that's D. So that's not why. The correct answer is A, to get prior consent, like Dan just highlighted here. It's really sad, but many agents don't really understand agency or the impacts and the importance of it. I'm just here to tell you that many of the disciplinary sanctions that you will read about in the newsletter when it comes out includes agency violations, and it's a key impact that they are rigidly enforcing and are constantly aware of. So prior consent is important, but everything has to be in writing. And when you list a property, you're not sure how it's going to sell. You have an idea how it's going to sell. Most of the time, about 70+% of the time, it will sell through another agent across the MLS. But like I said, it's nice to be on both sides as well. And if you're going to do that, you're going to be a limited agent or a dual agent because you might be representing both. Now, and this one I just wrote up a couple of days ago, I did not write it up as limited agency. Why? Because there's a relationship between me and the sellers. The sellers are good, very good friends. Our families are good friends. I've done other business deals with them, other transactions. Um, Recently, one of my sons bought a commercial property, and this family's been over there helping them with it. You know, they have equipment and trucks and loaders, and they've been changing the topography, all kinds of things. And they're doing it as favors. I mean, there's a close relationship between our two families. And this particular son of mine is a medical practitioner, and he takes care of their family. So he's a doctor. So anyway, it's I couldn't represent the buyers because I didn't know them from Adam, and so I can't really be totally neutral to both and fair and honest. But I always have to be fair and honest to everyone. But there's a tighter relationship with me and this other family, so I wrote it up as the buyers were sophisticated. They own 3 houses already. This will be their 4th rental property that they own, and so I wrote it up as an unrepresented buyer. So the buyers are unrepresented. Now, does that mean I can cheat and rob them, in favor of my friends? No, not at all. I have to be fair and honest to everyone, but my fiduciary is to the seller only. And I don't have a fiduciary relationship with that buyer. So there is a form for this. It's right on the MLS. It's called the Unrepresented Buyers Agreement. And it tells them right in the agreement, you can get an agent if you want to, but you don't have to. And you still have to be treated fairly and honestly and that kind of thing. And they were fine with that, so that's what we did. A young man is dating one of my daughters, recently got licensed. It's his very first deal. And I've mentioned this before, but sadly, he went to his broker to get advice because he held an open house, and a buyer showed up at the open house and wanted to buy his listing. Well, that's great. I mean, it's the same thing that happened to me, except it wasn't an open house. They just, noticed that they were moving out and contacted me. But the point is this, okay? He couldn't do limited agency technically between this buyer that showed up at his open house and his current contract he had with the sellers, because the sellers, in this case, the owner of the house was his grandmother who'd passed away, and his father and a couple of his dad's aunts, or his dad's siblings, were the other 2 owners. So there were 3 owners. They inherited it from grandma, who was his grandma. This is his dad's property, at least a third of it. And there's no way he could represent buyers he wasn't related to, and these other people equally in the same transaction. So he went to, instead of calling me, he called his broker and said, how do I put this together? And the broker said, write it up as limited agency. And he did. And it closed. And he hasn't gotten in trouble with it yet. But, I'd hate to have my first transaction go south in 6 months when, this buyer's at a party somewhere and they say, well, yeah, it was kind of weird because it was his grandmother and dad that owned the house and his aunts. But he was supposed to be representing us too. And then someone there said, well, I had a real estate license once for 4 months, and you can't do that. That's against the rules, So who knows if it's ever going to come back to haunt him. I hope it doesn't. But you got bad advice. If you're in a situation and you want advice, you can always call Dan. You can always call me at the school, or you got my personal number. We'll give you our best advice. We'll also tell you somewhere else you can go to get further information. And what I suggested this young man, after the fact, what he finally told me about it was, well, okay, if you don't believe me, call the legal hotline at realtor.com, which is our MLS. We have a lawyer on staff at the MLS, and that takes these calls. It's like 3 days a week, and they will come in and he'll say, oh yeah, you can't do that. You're gonna get in trouble. So there are places to get help. I understand a lot of agents aren't going to pick up the phone and call the division, say, can I talk to an investigator? Well, hypothetically, there's this thing going on, and how would you look at, I can understand why you wouldn't want to do that. But you need to talk to somebody, talk to a more experienced person and find out, get their opinion, but that's only their opinion. He should have been able to get good advice from his broker, but he didn't. And unfortunately, that's not that rare. Just be careful who you let near your brain. Let's look at number 8, please. In fact, in a lot of ways, when you first pass your exam, you're going to be sharper than a lot of agents out there. Oh, I do my 18 hours of CE credit every 2 years. Big whoop. You really want to be good at this business. You should be reading and studying and watching things every single day. You should be immersed in this business. You should be not taking 18 CE credit hours every 2 years. It should be 36 or 50. You should always be in a class learning something. It's the only way to separate you from the bozos in the industry. Okay. Number 8, select from the following primary reason that a property condition disclosure is completed by the owner. Why? Why do we do these? Well, it itemizes the key point of values in the property. No, that's an appraisal. It discloses to the buyer material facts concerning the property. That's it. It itemizes for the agent key talking points. You don't need key talking points, okay? It discloses to the buyer material facts concerning the property. I mean, who should know the property better than the sellers? We have a form for this. It's lengthy. It's 6 pages. And so you, like our contract. Well, anyway, you give them the form and they fill it out. Now you can sit there with them and questions that always come up, but you want them to fill it out in their handwriting. Is, well, the roof leaked 4 years ago and we fixed it. We haven't had any trouble with it since. Do I have to disclose that? And the answer is absolutely. We had a problem, we fixed it. Hasn't been a problem. That's it. That's fine, but you have to disclose these things. Well, what if they don't want to buy the house after they see all this stuff? Well, then they weren't your buyer. It's better you have to disclose all material facts. Material fact is anything that could affect the price significantly enough that it would be a go or no go. And okay, so you're selling a little $450,000 home. Maybe I'll lower that. Okay, $375. You're selling at $375, and there's a dishwasher problem. When they move in, was that a material fact? Well, maybe. If it was $1,000 to fix it or $1,200 or something, that they may not have wanted that house, particularly if it's in the lower price ranges. But it's a $2.3 million house and the dishwasher goes out. That's probably not a material fact. It has to be of great import to the point where it would say go or no go on a transaction. And of course, that'll vary depending on what it is and how much it costs to fix. Okay, that was number 8. Number 9. A transaction broker owes loyalty to, and we don't have transaction brokers in Utah, but we do in Colorado, our neighbor to the east, and Florida, and a number of other states allow you to be a transaction broker. You're just a deal maker, okay? So what happens if in a transaction broker, the correct answer to this question is B, no one. Because a transaction broker is a broker that's not representing.
Okay, Mark, I'll see you tomorrow.
As a fiduciary.
Yeah, that's great news.
Yeah, mute your mic, please. But what happens if you're a transaction broker, you're not representing a buyer or a seller, either one. Okay. So you're just a deal maker. And we don't allow that in Utah. In Utah, every real estate agent must represent someone. Now, the one I just illustrated to you, we put under contract last week. There is no one representing the buyer, but they disclose, we disclose that, and they sign a document saying, yeah, that's fine. We can take care of ourselves. We don't need an agent. Okay. Well, since there's only one agent in the deal, where's all the commission go to? Well, the one agent in the deal. Okay, the first party they contract with in the same transaction, no. Title company, no. Both parties equally, no. And number 10, the most significant difference between an owner representation agreement and a buyer representation agreement is who is your client. They're both agency contracts. They both commit either a buyer or a seller individually to go out and do a deal with you. And, a lot of times your very best buyers, quite frankly, I believe, are your sellers. once you sold a house out from under someone and they need another one, why shouldn't they use you? I mean, you already proven yourself once. You got their house sold. Not only that, but when it's closing, how much money they're getting. They've already talked to you about what they want, and now you're out beating the bushes, finding them a new house. But the important thing is, what classification are they? Are they an A, B, or C? They're not a C because they have they want to buy right now. Okay, now sometimes they'll turn into a B, which says, well, we can't find anything. We're just going to move into one of our rentals that was vacant, or we're going to move into mom's basement until we can find the right thing. But they're good, strong A buyers because they have motivation. They have a date. They have a date set. So, don't put B's and C's in your car. You will go out of the business. You'll lose. You can't afford it. Okay. So it's the client. A is their correct amount. It's not the commission amount. It's not agency law application. It's certainly not contract law application. It is the client. Who is the client? Well, in a buyer's agreement, it's the buyer, and a seller's agreement, which is called a listing, it's the seller. Okay. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you can do both and be a limited agent. Okay. Okay. Questions that you guys might have about other things or anything we discussed tonight? Really admonish you to go listen to that information on listings. It's what's going to make it work for you. Personally, I've done a lot of mentoring with hundreds of agents over the years, and it's amazing to me how they don't do what it takes to make it into business. And they come and say, well, I've had some success, but it's mediocre, and I'm not getting the amount of money for the time I need to invest and what it costs to be in the. Yeah, I understand all that. So here's what we need to do. First of all, you need to make a database of all the people your family, your friends, your acquaintances, people you've done business with in the past and other businesses. And you need to market that database. You need to market to that database. You say, well, I don't want to work with my family until I have more experience. Crap, man, your family is the one that's going to stick with you. They love you. They trust you. I mean, how bad can you screw it up? You're licensed by the state of Utah, right? You went to school, you got a license. I mean, don't wait till you've done 50 deals before you start talking to your relatives about doing deals. You may not last that long. Because I've talked to you guys about this before. My first sale was my brother-in-law, Stephen, who waited to buy a home until I got a license. Thank you, Stephen. Day one, I was out there. Day two, we found a house, wrote it up, and then I had it. And then I asked Steve if he had any referrals for me. And he had a guy who wanted to sell a house. So, first listing, first sale, Stephen, thank you. Okay. Second listing was a duplex that was a vacant home that my sales manager put me in his car one day and said, after I got those two deals my first week, my sales manager said, maybe I better, learn who this kid is and what's motivating him. So we went out and driving around looking at subdivisions and whatnot. He just wanted to get to know me, but we were looking at different homes in different areas, and we're talking about them. And we drove by this duplex that had huge weeds out in front of it. I says, man, when I came here to move into this community just 3 months ago, I saw this same property because I was looking for a place to rent. And man, it was empty then, and it's empty now. And then my sales manager, he used to takeaway clothes. He says, well, kid, either, do you want to follow up on it, or do you want me to follow up on it? I says, well, you have all the business you need. I want to follow up on it. He says, well, then go ahead and follow up on it. So I did. I found out who owned it. And I started calling the guy, and I called and called and called and called. And the guy was never home, never answered his dang phone, didn't have an answering machine. Anyway, I kept calling and calling. Finally, one day he answered the phone. And I said, hi, this is Rookie Rick. And I said, you got a duplex. And, do you want to do something with that? He said, I just want to leave it alone for a while. And, and he hung up pretty much, and that's stupid. So I called him back. No, not right then, 2 days later. And I kept calling him back, and I talked to him 3 or 4 times. And finally, one day he said, you really want to do something with this? I said, yeah, I do. He says, well, come on out and list it. That was a Wednesday. So I listed it on a Wednesday, put it in the we had a newspaper back then, put a classified ad in the newspaper. Got a call on Friday night from a gentleman who wanted to go look at it. I said, great, meet me at the office, Saturday morning. We'll go out and take a look at it. He showed up, super well qualified, little round maple table. I sat him down. I pre-qualified this guy. Well, he's like a GS 14 or something, real high up in the government. And he was tired of paying taxes. Didn't have enough write-off. He just read the current Get Rich Quick book in real estate, which was how I took $1,000, turned into $3 million my spare time in real estate. He was hot to do something. So we went out and looked at the duplex, loved it. But he'd read that book. So I said, well, do you think, if I gave 10%, the seller might carry back 10 and, he might, yeah, I think so. We went back to the office, little round maple table, sat down and wrote it all up. And called the owner, John Desbobic, all excited, but he didn't answer the phone. Sunday, I get a call from another agent who wanted to show the property. I said, yeah, go ahead and show it. And then later that Sunday, he called with an offer, brought it over. I said, look, I have two offers. One I wrote, this one you wrote. So what do I do with that? And he says, well, kid, what you do is you take it over, you give them both, let John look at them, and he'll decide which one he wants. Okay, I can do that. So Monday morning, I'm on the phone again, trying to get a hold of John. God, the guy was gone every weekend. Let me tell you, he was an avid fisherman hunter. He was out all the time. Anyway, he answered the phone. I said, hey, John, I got two offers. And he got ecstatic. He said, you got to be kidding me. Two offers? You haven't had it a week. I said, yeah. We'll bring him right over. So I went out to his house. He lived right across the street from the duplex. And, he tried to do something with the duplex. He built his house and he built the duplex. He built them both. He was a builder. And he'd had trouble with the duplex. He listed it with an agent and he didn't get anything done on it. And then the sewer backed up in it. So he had to, rip out carpet and sheetrock, sanitize, and put in a check valve. And he just had a lot of trouble with it. And so he did like a lot of rational adults do. He was solving his problem by ignoring it. But every evening he'd go to bed and his wife would say, sweetheart, we really need to do something about the duplex. And he'd get up in the morning, look out the window, it was still there. So when I push just a little bit, now look, if you're constantly nagging people and they have no need, that's being a jerk. They have no interest, no needs. Hi, I want to talk to you about extending your car home warranty. That's just being a jerk. Okay. But I knew he had a vacant duplex and I knew that was a valuable asset that needed to be maximized. He needed to either get it rented or sold, and so with just a little bit of interest and push, few conversations, I got it listed. Then he accepted that offer. Well, he accepted the offer from my buyer. He said, well, which one of these is better for you? This one or this one? I says, well, John, I've done net sheets on both these. And the one from this other agent is $500 better for you. And he says, Roller, I want to take the one that's best for you. And he did. And he signed that one. And he got euphoric because he could feel that millstone being lifted from his neck. So he grabbed me by the arm, pulled me out of his home office, went down the street, 2 or 3 houses, banging on another door. And the door was opened by Donnie Jaswinski. And John Desbobic and Donnie Jaswinski were good fishing and hunting buddies. John looks at Donnie and he says, this is Rick Roller, the greatest real estate agent ever to walk the face of the earth. Well, or something like that, because I just solved his problem. In his mind, I was great, and so Donnie, you need to use Rick on every real estate deal you use. And Donnie looked at John and looked at me and said, oh, okay, fine. Donnie was another builder who had just fired his broker. Donnie listed about 8 homes with me over the next few days and dozens and dozens and dozens more over the next few years. I do, my first, one day, Donnie shows up the office with another guy who had a tape measure on his belt. And I figured, oh, it's got to be another contractor. He walks in, this is my friend, Ken. And I was wondering if you could do for him like you do for me and sell his stuff. And I said, sure. So I picked up another builder, and then I picked up a third builder. So my first year in the business, I sold about 56, 58 homes. But my second year, I sold 98 homes because of these 3 builders. And guys, I learned the importance of listings. Let me tell you. But that buyer, the GS 14 guy, After he got that under contract, he got crazy. He says, well, what else you got? I said, well, there's a lot over here. Shows a lot of promise. Okay, I'll take that. What else you got? I said, there's a fourplex over here. He said, yeah, I'll take that too. He became my most loyal buyer. I mean, he was fantastic. He would call me on the phone and say, Rick, there's another fourplex that's popped up for sale around the corner from the other three you've already sold me. I know you're busy, but can you get over here and write this up for me? I said, yeah, sure, Roger. I'll be right over. Later, Roger and I actually became partners and owned an alternative long distance telephone company in Western Colorado that I put together. So, I'm big on listings because it works. I mean, I have a lot of agents that are pretty frustrated right now. They call me and say, Rick, I don't know what to do. I've had this buyer now for a month and we've written 15 offers. We never get anything. Everything's going over the appraisal. Things are crazy. And I said, yeah, I know. I know it's very frustrating. He says, tell me about the last offer you wrote. He says, well, there were 5 offers on this home and we missed it by about 10 grand. We were outbid by about 10 grand. I says, okay. The moral of that story is who won in that transaction? There were 4 losers and 1 winner. There were 5 different buyers that came in with 5 different agents and only one won, right? But who always wins? It's the listing agent. Okay. No matter how many offers you get, if they accept an offer, the listing agent always wins. If you want to make big money in this business, you need to be a listing agent because working with multiple buyers, like loading them up in a van and taking them around, well, you're all looking for the same kind of house. Let's just look together. Haven't found anyone that really works for. Sometimes we used to get those van agents that would come in and they would buy every home in a subdivision and then hang on to them until they got built and then flip them. The contractors aren't really allowing that much anymore. But the point is that if you control the inventory, you control the market. If you control the inventory, you control the market. Well, how do you control the inventory? You have plenty of money. You develop and build your own stuff, and people come to you because you're the owner and the broker. Okay. That's one way. You control it. Okay. You don't have much money, but you have investment partners. That's another way, which is still buying it, developing it, building it. Okay. And I had my first broker I ever went to work for, he and his partner made millions of dollars doing that, millions of bucks. And I learned from them. So you control it that way. But if you don't have investors, you don't have your own money to control and buy and develop this inventory, then you list it. You list it. Think about it. You could control millions of dollars worth of inventory with just a little bit of shoe leather and chutzpah and going out there and getting listings. And it locks you into, and in this market, they're probably all going to sell. And, because the demand is so high. But by getting a listing, you control that property and you're guaranteed a percentage, a little percentage. But a little percentage on big numbers is big numbers. Okay. So I don't care if it's 2.5%, 3 or 4%, whatever it is, 6% in some cases. If you get both sides, I mean, that's all great. But I went to lunch by the time my second year rolled around, we were living in a swanky neighborhood in the Western Colorado where I started in the business. And I started with, Volkswagen Bug. We didn't own any real estate, but, after a year or so we were rolling and, it's amazing what can come to you, if you're out working and you're working in the right way. So 2 things. Number 1, please take to heart the fact that if you have a buyer in your car, you have one chance to make a deal put together, to get a deal put together and make a commission. One chance with that buyer. That's it. Okay. If you have 3 listings and that one buyer in your car, that gives you 4 chances to put a deal together. Okay. Now you should always show your own listings to your buyers, but sometimes they buy them, sometimes they don't. But my point is that you get leverage by controlling the property. Okay. And so you get to the point where you have 8, 10, 15 listings all the time, you're going to get very wealthy. Run your own numbers, get out your little calculator and a blank piece of paper and mess around with it and see how many deals you have to make serious money in this business. And it's not that many deals anymore because of the high prices. 25 deals makes, well, you do your own math, but the average sales price right now is 3 and change, about 350, 375. That's just the average deal. It's hard to find even a condo anymore for under 300 grand. So, it's an interesting market, but I would suggest you control the market by getting listings and controlling listings. Now, does that mean don't work with buyers? No, I already mentioned who the very best buyers on planet Earth. They're your sellers. You sold their home out from under them, and now they need to buy another one. They're fantastic buyers. That's where you get your buyers. Well, if everyone's working on listings, who comes in with the buyers? Don't worry about that. A number of foolish agents will, well, I don't like listings, because they call you and, they bug you and they, yeah, okay, whatever. Think buyers don't call and bug you? Think buyers don't call and say, hey, I drove by a house and want to go look at it right now. Yeah, but it's my daughter's dance recital. She's been practicing for months. Can we go after the? No, I need to go right now. Well, okay, well, you have a life with listings. I've been on vacation a lot of times, come back, had 2 of my listings sell when I was gone. That was great. Paid more than paid for the vacation. It was fantastic. A lot of nice things happen to you when you control the market. You get all the credit. People are driving around town, they see your signs with your name on it all the time. If you're just a buyer's agent, how are you ever going to get a sign out there with your name on it? People kind of get used to it. I had three listings on Creek Road, that kind of goes down from 13th East down in towards the Willow Creek Golf Club in that area on Creek Road. I had four listings. And people, I'd be working that neighborhood and people, I see your signs everywhere. You must be everywhere. I had 4 listings on Creek Road. That was what I had. But they saw the signs, they saw driving by and they saw my signs. They drove home every day down there. In fact, I like listings on busy streets because, it's like having a billboard sign out there, listings. It won't, it'll do you right, listings. Okay, you want to work with buyers, that's fine too, but it's a harder road to hoe, particularly now when you have to write so many multiple offers just to get a deal. Now, if you are going to be working with buyers, you need to get schooled on how to write compelling offers, bigger earnest monies, shorter closings, willingness to pay over the appraisal, of delayed possession sometimes. The very best way to structure an offer is to talk to the listing agent. I love it when buyer's agents will call me and say, Rick, I showed your house this afternoon. I said, oh, great. How'd your buyers like it? They want to write an offer. What are they thinking? Well, they're thinking this, that. Well, that one item is real important to my seller. They would consider doing this or the other thing. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, why write it up when you could talk, without talking to me, when you should call me and talk to me and say, what are your sellers looking for? What are they? And we can talk about it, especially on things like possession and does that second refrigerator in the garage, they want to give that up or not, or, all kinds of little things to structure a deal so it's very compelling. It looks like it was custom made for that seller. Why? Because you talk to the listing agent. Okay. Just some ideas. I know that's something agents don't like to do. They just want to text each other these days. I don't want to talk to the other agent. Well, it's more difficult to put deals together. Come on, especially on commercial or even on residential deals. Talk to the other agent. Okay. And get good advice. Watch out who you let near your brain. Talk to people that have accomplished something in the business that you want to accomplish, not people that haven't accomplished a damn thing or got out of the business. I had a brother-in-law, not Stephen. Stephen got into business, by the way. My brother-in-law bought the house from him. He's still in business today after 40 years, and I've been about 44 years or so. But But I had another brother-in-law got in business for about 4 months, then quit. He just couldn't make it. And then, boy, he was giving everyone advice all the time. I mean, had no investments, no investment property, lived in a rented house, and failed as an agent. That's someone you really want to take advice from, isn't it? Okay. Or you have a broker that tells you to do limited agency when it's your deceased grandmother's house. Oh boy. Dan, do you have any closing remarks?
Thanks, Rick, for all of your wisdom today. Really appreciate that. It's fun to get some insights into the market in addition to the laws and stuff that we look at on the test. So we really appreciate your expertise with that. We're glad to have you here with us. Anyone, feel free to give us a call at the school with any questions, or you can call Rick. He's offered, and ask any questions you have as you're getting ready for the test or beyond, anything we can help you with.
Absolutely. My number, 801-556-8000. That's 801-556-8000. Operators are standing by. Actually, I answer my own phone. Do not text me.
All right.
I won't even see it for a long time. All right. Thanks, guys, for being with us tonight. Appreciate you. Want you to know you're in the right place at the right time. For those of you that have fire in your belly and a hunger to make something for yourself and your family, this is the right place to be at the right time. I'm telling you, in 5-6 short years, your life could be completely changed. Okay. All the security you want and everything else, but you've got to start off in turbo mode, guys. Don't do this long ramp up. Well, okay, I got enough money where I could survive for 6 months without making any income. So that's what I'm going to do. Well, stupid. Go out and make it happen right away. Appreciate you guys. Have a great evening. Thanks, Dan.